Welcome to this video on the quality of AI summaries. While working with the different applications, I realized that the results were very different in the different applications. So I thought I take a closer look and walk you here through three applications: ATLAS.ti, MAXQDA and AILYZE. ATLAS.ti and MAXQDA are what I now call standard or traditional programs that have been supporting us with qualitative data analysis for the last 30 years already, and AILYZE is a new kid on the block. It is AI based and there's no coding required, and I will show you the interface so you can get a bit of an idea if you haven't seen it yet. So what I first want to zoom into are the document summaries. We don't get them in MAXQDA unless you have only short documents, so you kind of have a workaround. If you just highlight, you can get segments or summaries of highlighted data segment, but a 1 hour interview, as what I'm looking at here, would be too long for that. So we can look at document summaries in ATLAS and in AILYZE. I work with two sample projects where there are no data privacy concerns. So these are interviews with 4 students about the topic of friendships, so that we don't have to kind of read all the text all the time. I work with different colors here. So the green colors indicate what is the same in the first and the second summary, and you might know that already from ChatGPT or from other AI-based tools, that every time you ask for a summary you get a kind of slightly different answer. And if the answer would just be worded, what you would get, it would be worded in a different way, but in essence you would get the same thing, then it wouldn't matter so much. Here, the green is what you get in both. The red is different information that you get in both of the summaries, and I also pointed out the they, because in ATLAS as in MAXQDA for the summaries, well, you can just press the button summary, so there is no interaction with the AI, so you cannot tell the AI what your data is all about, whether it's an interview or it's a focus group, or if the other part is like social media comments, the other data set I'm playing around with. Sometimes it takes an educated guess and then it's okay, but sometimes it doesn't, or it gets it wrong. So what we get here in the purple color is share mutual acts of kindness. You also see that in green here, so we get some duplications, so that's also sometimes to pay attention to. So when we look at the summaries now, the green here indicates what is the same. With the red we learn something new, and the purple is a duplication that is already in the summary. Here it doesn't fit on the screen. So just look at these two summaries just to point out what is the same, and then of course everything else would be different. And also pay attention to the length of the summary. These are 1 hour interviews and we just get a few lines, and sometimes here the second summary is a bit longer. So this is compressing everything that is in one interview, and I find that quite short, unless you just kind of want to quickly remind you of what's in the interview. If you listen to some of the ATLAS documentation, it will tell you even to just add these summaries as documents, because the way what ATLAS does, all the summaries live in memos, and you can assign memos as documents in ATLAS. They say, well, you can just assign those memos as documents and code them, and you have a very compressed analysis. I think that would be a bit too compressed. If you get one short paragraph, well, how many codes do you get? 2 or 3? I mean, it wouldn't even be worthwhile coding the data because summaries are so short. So that workflow I do really not suggest. So it might be just something you can put in your document comment to remind yourself, what's in the document. Then the issue still is, every time you run it, you get different information. So again, here we go through the third interview. We get some similarities, but we also learn different information, and we get a little bit of duplication or repetition in the summaries. And here, just as an example, a third summary. So that third summary has nothing to do with what I got here. Sometimes if you run the summary and then run the summary again, you get the same results. But if you do it a day later, or if you open a different project and add the same documents and run the summaries, then the results will differ. But that's also kind of like, yeah, today you get this summary and another day you get something else. So it's not really something you can rely on. And then you can also not interfere and kind of say, if you get a very short summary or I want more details, I want quotes, and so on. So just to give you a bit of an impression, you don't have to repeat all of this here, just also visually, the green is the same. With the red, we learn new information in the summaries. So what I've highlighted in this slide, as compared to before, is some of the slight difference that we get here. In the first summary, we learn that Tom is the best friend, which is true, and here only the summary talks about Tom. And both summaries said the friendship evolved over time, and here we learn they remained strong through tough times. And here in the second summary, we actually find out why or what the tough times are, how age and illness have impacted this relationship. And here we get aspects of personal growth, and here it talks about being oneself. Could be saying, well, it kind of touches on probably something similar, but again, we cannot ask further questions, and this is what we get. And in the third summary, well, we learned something very new about Tom, that he engages in activities such as golf and bowling and barbecue. That wasn't in the other two summaries at all. And he also says that when you have a partner and you settle down, then your partner becomes your best friend. So we also don't learn that in the other summaries. I would say these are all kind of important aspects, and would be nice to have one summary that touches on all points in the interview. This is the second data set I'm playing with, and these are social media comments. And what I want to point out here, and the colors you already know now what they mean, is that in the parenting blog we have about 100 comments, and we get these two different summaries, and they're rather short. And this document, comments on a newspaper article, is half the size of all the comments, about only 40 comments. And also it's not that the comments would be longer, and the documents really half the size in terms of length. So you get this rather long summary. I mean, long in the sense of what we get here. Yeah, and this is actually very, very short. I mean, there's almost 100 comments, and these are compressed in just these two sentences, or it's just, yeah, two sentences here. So I'm not so impressed about the document summaries that the Atlas offers. So let's move on to what AILYZE does. So I uploaded here, or you can upload your documents here. These are the social media comment documents, and then you can ask for summaries, and for a fair comparison, I just did that. But you can also ask more specific question, give the tool more background, and you can also actually do that in the summary field. You can add some additional information. But just to compare, I just click the summary button without adding any further instructions. But this is the AILYZE tool that you can try out for free, and there is now also a paid version, and that they say it's more powerful than this one. But for experimentation, this served quite well. So AILYZE also gives me these two summaries. They're also not that extensive, and again we also see in the second summary lots of different information that we didn't get in the third summary. So there's not much different to what Atlas provides. But what it does with the interview is something very different, also without giving it specific instructions. It does go over now 3 slides, so it does provide more detail, and it does what Also, we know from ChatGPT, it kind of gives us an introduction, gives a conclusion, so it kind of has learned how to write an essay, in a sense. And then it also gives you the title. It says The Evolution of Friendship from Childhood to University. In doing that, it kind of focuses on, this little story it wants to tell. So from friendship at university, and then friendship from childhood, friendship from school, and the impact on motherhood and broad spectrum of friends. So this gives a much more extensive summary of the interview and touches on the main points. So in comparison to what you get in Atlas, also it's not interfering or it's not giving any further instruction, that is already more useful and more extensive, and then you could interact with the AI and ask more questions. Just for comparison, this was the summary you got from Atlas from the same interview. So here we got like 3 pages, a little story around it, and that was the summary in comparison. So now let's move on to category summaries. That is something, or code summaries. That is something you can get also in MAXQDA, and in a sense, because you don't need to code data in AILYZE, I exported the content of the coded data, so we get also comparison for AILYZE. So actually we will see the coding in a bit. So I was summarizing the category negative effects of having children, which actually has some subcodes, but instead of summarizing each and every subcodes, I just summarized the entire category. Look at the bold, or the words I put in bold. So it's negative effects of having children. It pulled out loss of personal identity, resentment, financial strain on relationships, balancing work and parenting, the need for stability and high costs of raising children. What I put in yellow is that other bit of information that you probably wouldn't pull out when you just focus on the negative effects when you write yourself. However, some also acknowledge the happiness and fulfillment that children can bring. What you get in that's the way I coded the data, because in a lot of sentences people mention the positive and the negatives because parenting is full of ambivalence. You cannot sleep at night, but then you look at your child in the morning and it laughs at you and everything is forgotten again. So you get a lot of these in one sentence, and if you code data, it doesn't really make sense to just strip that apart, otherwise you lose the context. But in summarizing the data, the AI of course looks at everything that you have coded, and that might not necessarily just be the one aspect you want to focus on, because again, you cannot just give me only a list of the negative effects that I've coded here. It will also look at other things that you have coded because you needed the context. If you look at you can also get you can get an essay, or you can get a bullet point list, which gives you a few more detailed points. And I have been using that not as a result, but more like as in the code memo, to have, in addition to the description of the code, I got a little bit more content. So as a summary of code, this is what is in that category. So that's why I used it more on the category level and on every subcode level. But it's kind of summarized. You can kind of visit the code and remind yourself, okay, these are the aspects I've coded here. And often I just did both, did the essay and then also the bullet points. So with Atlas, you look again at the bold, what's in bold, we get similar points. We get here resentments towards partner and spouse because of the stress. We get loss of freedom, impact on career and personal life, a lack of support from employers, societal expectation, and some admit to regretting having children. And the yellow one is still aspects that are within the context but not necessarily related to the focus of that category and the negative effects of having children. To give you an idea. So we have different wording, but the aspects are similar that have been pulled out. And now we get the summaries from AILYZE. And what I did, I exported all the coded segments about negative effects of parenting and gave that AILYZE as a document. So it, and again, I didn't give it any instruction to keep it similar. So it doesn't know anything about the data. But it says, it finds out the document provides a collection of personal experience and opinions regarding the negative effects of parenting. So it does get that these are all comments about negative effects of parenting. So it's always, also amazing what the AI can do, but we still always also have to evaluate it in a bit more detail. So what it picks out are the challenges in marital satisfaction, the impact on personal happiness. So includes, in there it picks out the header is maybe a bit misleading, but the negative effects here: increased opportunities for conflict, financial stress, need to defer enjoyable activities, resentment, we had that as well, and it gives an explanation. The negative effects on happiness may be attributed to work-family tension. So it picks up on that work-family balance that we also had in the other summaries, but we're not done yet. So then it focuses on the career and freedom aspects. It adds stress and has some influence on personal freedom. And that's also what we see a lot. Also, if we look at MAXQDA, for example, suggesting subcodes, that it puts things together that don't really belong together. There are an impact on career, but there's an impact on freedom, on personal freedom, but how it doesn't relating to career. So it sometimes puts these weird things together that we wouldn't put together. And then it also has a point on regret, and the orange one is still, it points out the positive parts, which we don't want to focus on here. And then it has loss of economic power, diminished sense of self. And then it comes up with a conclusion. So also here we get an interaction and we get a conclusion, so it kind of writes kind of a nice story. So if you look at the category, and this is now a screenshot of ATLAS, we later will see one of MAXQDA. So these were the category negative effects, and these are the different subcodes. Less fun, so we had fewer enjoyable activities, we have loss of freedom, more worries, more stress, financial strains, we had issues on relationships, effects on self, and it takes lots of energy. And the career balancing, I've coded actually somewhere else in a different category that was picked here up as negative effects. So I just leave this here for a moment. I think you could go back in the video as well, but in the summaries it kind of picked up on these main points and gave us a little bit more text around it. And the same for the positive effects. Just try to remember here the buzzwords: fulfillment, joy, richness, grow as an individual, compassionate, empathetic, appreciate my own parents, and better relationship with partner, and a sense of purpose and meaning. So these seem to be the points these are the points MAXQDA is picking out. And ATLAS is picking out fulfillment, sense of purpose, joy, deepens relationships, strengthens characters, and wouldn't trade it for anything, personal growth, empathy, compassion, rewarding, purpose of life. So we get something very similar, just worded differently. And remember, if you do the summary again, you will also get the wording differently, but hopefully picks up on the same kind of main points here. So AILYZE gives us a longer summary again, and here it just again tries to give us a little story, the journey of growth and fulfillment. It points out. So we get here the personal growth, life is richer, fulfillment, depth, meaning of life, source of immeasurable joy. So we get the joy aspect, and it excels in other areas of life, such as education and career. It does have some repetition, so personal growth we already have mentioned here, and become wider, more understanding, more compassionate, so that it's all part actually of personal growth, but it gives us more detail. All the red ones, it gives us longer summaries, but it also then becomes a little bit repetitive here. And the blue ones are, again, where we're looking at the positive, and here it's talking about frustration and gives us the other side of the picture. Which of course in the analysis we would also put these together, but here these segments, the focus here was supposed to be only on the positive effects, but as mentioned, I was not giving any instruction. I was just saying, here is a document, please summarize. So this is just to give us a different look, the coding statistics that you get in MAXQDA, and the summaries of the category to kind of pick on these main points or pull them out and give us a little bit more context around that. So that's what we have been coding. Of course, we would expect that in the summaries that it would come back, but it does. And I put this graphic in here to point out one of the main difference that we have with the traditional characters, and compared to what AI-based tools can give us, it can count. And AI-based tools are large language model. You've already heard probably that very good in math. You can connect them with some other AI-based tools, then they are better. But the large language model, if you give it text, so we cannot tell AILYZE, you count how often life is richer or fulfillment was mentioned. So that's only something you get when you actually code the data. And not everybody wants to count, but just to point out that this is a difference here. So in conclusion, so document summaries in ATLAS are not exhaustive. They often are very short and don't capture at all what is in the document, and every time we run it we get a different summary. In AILYZE we get the same effect, that we do get different summaries, but the summaries are more extensive, so they tend to cover the document much broader, and even though they might add another aspect in another summary, but it's not as very different as we have seen in ATLAS. So document summaries in ATLAS, as they are now, I don't find them very useful. If you move on to the category summaries or code summaries, you can of course also do that on the subcode level. We do get the main points in both ATLAS and MAXQDA, so that is useful in both summaries. And we have seen in AILYZE we get more content, we get a little story that might not necessarily what the focus is, but as mentioned already now a few times, we can interact with the AI and can kind of steer to what we want here. So category summaries in ATLAS and MAXQDA is something I have been using, but more as an extension to the codebook, not as a result. And to have that in the code, it's called code memo in MAXQDA. In ATLAS it would be the code comment, but the way ATLAS has set it up, all summaries, document summaries and also code summaries end up in memos. If you would do that for all of your codes, well, you end up with 100 memos. Not talking about the AI coding here, because you might have hundreds and hundreds of AI codes. If you want to summarize all those, you would just be overrun by those memos. If you find them useful, you would have to cut and paste them out of the memo and put them in the code comment. So it's a quick way to just review a code and remind yourself, okay, these are the main points that I've coded here, and that might help of course in further analysis. But as coding is not the analysis, the summaries are also not yet your analysis. They're just bits and pieces. So describing and summarizing, it's one step in analysis, so it's helpful that these tools are there. and they might also add a bit more efficiency into the analysis, might speed up the process, but don't think they're the end of your results yet. They're just a step in between.